Alright, so this is going to be part 1 to what if Asta had time magic. So with that being said, let's just roll the intro.
They took it to 10.
Let me tell you how I come through with the 1-2, kicking shit like kung fu. Treat a bad bitch like she average. I'm a savage, little hoe, what you want do? I'm about cash if the raw fast. I'ma get that little nigga by any means.
Alright, so before we actually start this what if, I would like to say that this is going to be a quick update on the kind of commandments. So right now we have 6 out of the 10 kind of figured out. So we have ultimate karma as piety, that commandment, and then we have Legoman 2005 as love, and then we have Noah's stories as faith, I believe, and then Rooree 23 as purity, and then Dabi, Black Dabi as, or Dabi Black as pacifism, and then we have random idea dude as truth. So like I said in my other videos, if you want to be a part of this, then you gotta, hit me up on Discord or tell me your, best video and things like that, and your YouTube name, right? And I might accept you, depending on if you meet our standards and things like that. So with that being said, let's get into the actual what if. So in this one, Asta, he knows that he has kind of some sort of time magic, because even without a grimoire, mages can still use their magic to a certain extent. Like fire mages could use fire, they could have fire in their hands, and a wind mages can use wind without using the grimoire and things like that, right? And we've seen the Wizard King do things like this before. It's kind of hard to tell if he actually does use his grimoire or not, because his grimoire is in the air most of the time, really high up. So we don't really know. We know that he could do some sort of beams or energy balls that have to do with time. So yeah. So in this one, at a young age, Asta finds out that he has time magic. And what he does with this time magic is that he helps out Hodge Village. And you might be asking well, how does he do that? Well, he actually uses his time magic to make the crops grow faster, which is pop potatoes, if you didn't know. So he is actually, reveal people really like Asta because of this, and his church doesn't really go hungry for most of the series, right? Because of how he uses time magic. So doesn't have that encounter with actually I guess he still would have that encounter with the drunken man in the bigger village, because they're gonna need more supplies other than just food, right? Even though they would have a lot because of Asta's time magic. And I would say in this one, Asta would still get strong, just generally because of all the farm work he would do, and I think he would want to train to become the Wizard King, like his dreams are always have been, right? And in this one, I would say that he would still have that romantic feelings towards Sister Lily, because there isn't a particular plot point that would change that fact, because it would still be the same way of how she was introduced as Asta, as being kind of being that older sibling towards the kind of as kids, right? So he wouldn't really change that position, and thus he would still have feelings for Sister Lily. So we could do a time skip, right, to the day that they go and get their grimoire. So they go to that kind of tower that they usually go when mages become 15 and they go and get their grimoire. So still gets that 4-leaf grimoire, and there's a lot of light that emits from it, and people are kind of looking at him, right? And this is when Asta get his grimoire, right? But it's only 1 page, right? It's a coverless grimoire with only 1 page, and it's a little piece of paper that would just fall towards Asta, right? And Asta would be confused, what? Why do I only have 1 page? And people would laugh at him, because like the size of your grimoire and how many pages it has usually depends, or it usually determines how much magic you're gonna be able to have and things like that, right? So people are laughing at him. And in this one, I would say Asta has a lot of magic and a lot of things like that, right? Because he is Yuno's rival, and I like to keep their kind of theme of them being kind of similar in power, right? But the kind of wizard or the mage that's there at the time, the kind of older fellow, right, that's like looking over or kind of running the ceremony, right? He would notice that he has a strange grimoire, right? He would know that this is similar to the Wizard King's grimoire that only had one page when he got it. So Asta would be kind of like complaining about how he only got like one page, like what the heck, like, you know. But at the same time, he's very happy that he even got a grimoire, because all of his life he wants to be the Wizard King. So he would kind of, you know, go back to the church with Sister Lily and the priest, right? And the kind of mage that was there running the thing would be like, wow, that kid, it looks like he has time magic. And that's all he would really say or really think at the time. And they would still have that kind of Yuno and Asta would still have that kind of interaction where he says he's going to be his rival even with one page as his grimoire, and people would laugh like, you be the Wizard King? Yeah, right, because I don't think most people knew that the Wizard King only had one page in his grimoire at the beginning. So Yuno would be like, yeah, right, just how he does in the anime. So Asta would kind of try to use his grimoire, and I think at this time he would only have one spell, and that would be chronostasis, which is the kind of move that you see on screen. It could basically it traps people in a kind of orb that kind of stops their time, and you could use this on like spells as well, like projectiles. So if you guys have any ideas for like spells that you want for this kind of time related magic, please tell me in the comments down below. But he would have like general like time powers, just like Julius uses, like that time beam and a time orb that he shoots at like people to kind of like almost instantly kill them. So that's basically what he would do. So he would kind of like look through his grimoire, kind of checking every nook and cranny of it, trying to see if there's anything special about it. All he knows is that he has time magic and there's one page, so he's like, this needs to mean something. It just can't be a coincidence that I have time magic and only one page, right? That's what Asta's thinking, right? So he would eventually go to the area where Yuno's at, right? And Yuno would have to defend himself against the nobles that were jealous of his, you know, four-leaf clover. And as they're doing that, they get attacked by the chain mage, and Yuno would get chained up, and the chain mage would take his grimoire, and he wants to sell it as a sort of art piece to the highest bidder, just how he does in the anime. So Asta would see this, and he'd be like, what are you doing to Yuno, right? And the chain mage would try to use his chains on Asta, but Asta, because he has time magic, he would have a faster reaction time, and he is very strong still in this and very fast, so he'd be able to dodge it. And I think he would use chronostasis on the chain mage, but I think he'd be able to do this because I believe time mages or people who have time as their magic can see into the future to some extent, right? We see this in the kind of latest chapters in Black Clover with the young Wizard King. I guess that's a spoiler, but anyways, yeah, he would be able to see. We're not gonna say that he has like he could see very far in the future. We could say like he can look up into like a minute into the future, right? Because the Wizard King, I'm pretty sure he could look into like years into the future, but that's a very advanced, you know, person. So yeah. So I think Asta would take down the chain mage without any difficulty, really, because he doesn't want to use his like orbs of like time and beams of time, because that will literally kill him. because a Wizard King can almost one-shot anyone using that. So he would use his chronostasis to kind of bind him there. And this is when, the authorities would come later on and basically, take the mage. And would basically say like, oh, looks like I'm in your debt again. And they would fist bump just how they do in the anime. So we get to the part where the wizard or the mage that was running the ceremony is actually talking to the priest and Sister Lily, and he's basically telling them that Asta has a very special grimoire because he has the same as the Wizard King. And hearing this, I think both of them would be surprised, and they would kind of like smile, thinking like Asta's dream of becoming the Wizard King might actually come to reality because he has the same type of magic, which is time magic. And they'd be kind of confused, like they'd be like, how come he only has one page? And the mage would kind of explain that time has no beginning or end, so he has no cover, and one page will keep on adding to itself until it becomes a kind of endless kind of book, just how the Wizard King's kind of looks like, right? So again, they'd be shocked and happy for Asta being born with such powerful magic, right? So we would go into that week in where they would train, and Asta would try to like figure out how to use his like beams, his beam like kind of time beams and the time orbs, and using chronostasis a little bit in different ways. And this is when he would figure out how to use it against spells, right? So yeah, and then he would learn how to like accelerate his own time, so he's able to dodge things a lot quicker and things like that. The Wizard King does have like some sort of spell. I don't think it is a spell actually. I think it's just general time magic where he's able to reverse his own time and reverse his like wounds that he got. So I think Asta would be able to do the same thing. And you might be saying like, well, even though they have the same affinity, it doesn't mean they're going to get the same spells. And that's right. That's kind of true. But in Black Clover, people are able to have the same spell, even if even though they have like the same affinity. We see this mostly with people that are related. We see this with Fogolion and Marileona with their spell. I think it's called Solinia. They both have the same spell and they both have the same affinity. And typically, what we've seen in Black Clover, that usually doesn't happen, right? But there are like a bunch of people who have the same or similar affinities that have similar spells to each other, like the giant like creation magic with the golems and things like that. So yeah. So their trip to the kind of to the capital, I guess it'd be like the same amount of difficulty, because in this one, even though he has like time magic, it doesn't really help him kind of survive in the wild too much. Like he's able to kill animals pretty fast, right? But they would still need to find ways to cook it and things like that. And they have no real transportation magic at this point, so they would just walk normally. And eventually they would get to the capital, and they would walk through, and they would see this kind of this big palace, this like castle, right? And also kind of in awe of seeing this, and he basically says like, wow, that's going to be my home someday. And he's like, hey, if you're nice, I might let you live there, with the church and everyone else, right? And would basically say like, no, that's gonna be my home, and if you're lucky, I might let you live there. And they basically just look around the kind of market that's there, and Asta would meet this kind of old lady that would give him the serpent on a stick, and he would buy it. That old lady being the Wizard King. And the Wizard King is thinking like, wow, we got a young prodigy at our hands, right? Talking about both and Asta, because Asta has his time magic, or has the same affinity as him. So they would continue to go to the they would get in line to have their number taken for the Magic Knights kind of exam, right? So they would be in line. Would show his grimoire, say he's from Hodge Village, and the person doing the numbers would be shocked and surprised to see a 4-leaf Grimoire coming from a commoner village, right? And then Asta would come up and the teller be like, is that even a Grimoire? It's only 1 page. He's like, of course it's a Grimoire. Look, see? And then the teller or the person doing the kind of numbers would notice that he has a lot of magic, so he wouldn't question him too much and give him a number. And people behind him, like Sakurai and people like that, would actually see Asta have 1 page in his Grimoire and be like, wow, this kid's really weak, right? And, you know, we would get to the point where they're kind of in that open area. And I think in this one, Nero would still hang around Asta just for the sake of like the plot. And I think she knows about the magic stones and who's gonna actually do it, and actually who's gonna like take them or like secure them, I guess. So yeah, she would kind of hang out with him, and this would kind of get Asta mad, seeing that everyone else, or like doesn't have any anti-magic birds on him, right? So as you know, he has the bird on his head, right? He's trying to like get it off, right? And he runs around trying to get Nero off of him. And this is when he bumps into Yami, and Yami just turns around, like he looks at this kid and he's like, you want to die, kid? And Asta, not knowing what to say, he tried to think of something fast. It's like he basically insults him, calling him old and how he had a rough life, right? And this gets Yami mad. He's like, I guess that's a yes. And this is when he kind of grabs his head, almost crushing it, and knowing what's going to happen or wanting to get out of that situation, this is when Asta tries to kind of brute force his way out of it, just how he does in the anime. But before he could do anything, this is when Yami gets distracted from the kind of fireworks that shoot out at the time, and this is kind of what saves Asta. So yeah, after that would happen, they would get ready for the exam, right? And I think Asta would do very well in all of them, right? There's like the flying test with the broom, and there's like accuracy with the kind of targets, and I think Asta would be very good at that because the beams and the orbs that go in like a straight line, right? So I think he would do very well in those 2 categories. And when we get to the fight, I think Sakurai would still go after Asta, thinking that he's weak, and he would use his bronze creation magic to kind of make that kind of orb that's around him, that kind of defense mixed with offense that he says. And this is when Asta would basically he would use his time beam to kind of shoot at it, to kind of age it and kind of destroy it, right? And this is when Asta would kind of rush in with using his like physical strength, along with like him like accelerating his time a little bit, and this would kind of one-shot Sakurai, right? And would still fight against the noble and win, right? So we get to the point later on into the day, after all the fights are done, and this is the part where the captains actually choose who they want to be on their team. So still gets all of his hands, everyone raises their hand for right? But I think for Asta, because they don't really know his affinity for magic, not everyone will raise their hand. I think the only one really would be Yami, because he sees potential in Asta, right? Because if you don't know, all the black bull members are kind of like strange or weirdos, right? So Yami would see this potential in him and kind of bring him or take him, right? So obviously Asta would be like, okay, I'll go with them, right? Since no one else kind of raises their hand. Because if we don't, like, I'll say this like for the plot reason, right? Because if he doesn't go with like the Black Bulls, there isn't really too much to go on really in terms of story, because you kind of need them to go with the Black Bulls because everything's centered around them, and we don't have enough information on the other kind of the other Magic Knight squads. So we can only really go with Asta with going with the Black Bulls. So yeah. So Sakurai would still try to poison Asta just how he does in the anime, because he would still have to go to the bathroom because of he ate the black snake, right? So Yuno would still come and kind of save him, right? Saying to Sakurai, like, don't even try to be his rival because you're not on the same level as him, right? And I say Sakurai still goes with the the green mantises. So yeah. So I think I'll end it here, and then in the next part we'll go over the kind of baptism and then the village attack, right? So with that being said, this is going to be the end of the video. So yeah,